Oh, you beautiful little arsonists. You gorgeous, reckless little truth-tellers who never even struck the match. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down. Because someone lit a fuse in a room you were never invited into. And the whole building, their whole beautiful, carefully constructed building, is currently producing the most spectacular smoke you have ever seen. They know. They actually know now. Not because you made an announcement. You didn't even clear your throat. Not because you kicked in the door. You were standing perfectly, politely, devastatingly still. But something escaped. Something that was supposed to stay buried in the basement of their little arrangement crawled up through the pipes, dripped through the ceiling. And now? Now it's staining every surface they own. And the people, oh, the people, who thought they had your whole situation mapped out, who thought they could keep having little committee meetings about your life in rooms with no windows, keep nodding along to this cozy consensus that you were somehow lesser. Those people, they are absolutely spiraling right now. Because the conversation they had behind your back just went full main character. And what crawled out of that basement was not, I repeat, not, what they had on the blueprint. Not even in the same zip code. Here's the bit nobody warns you about when it comes to people who discuss you in secret. My brilliant little undetonated devices. They always believe the room is locked. They believe quiet keeps them safe. They believe that because you weren't seated at the table, you'll never taste what they cooked up, never smell the smoke, never trace the grease fire back to their kitchen. And so they built what they believed was a bunker, soundproofed, climate-controlled, absolutely, hilariously secure. A place where their titles or their cleverness gave them this delicious little feeling of being untouchable, invincible, completely beyond the reach of anything as inconvenient as accountability. They spent months reinforcing that bunker, checking the seals, trusting the silence. And they were so comfortable inside it, so settled in, that they stopped watching for the one thing they should have been scanning for from the very first brick they laid. They forgot that truth has a signal, and no bunker ever poured has been able to jam it. They forgot that truth has a signal. Not once, not ever. For a while, maybe a long, dragging, suffocating while, you felt the ground shifting under you and couldn't name the tremor. Doors that should have swung wide stayed jammed. The vibe flipped in rooms the second you crossed the threshold. People who used to meet your eyes suddenly finding something absolutely riveting on the floor just past your shoulder. And you told yourself maybe you were overthinking it. Maybe you were being dramatic. Maybe this is just the way the current pulls sometimes. But you were not overthinking a single thing. There was a conversation, a deliberate one, behind sealed doors. Stop listening to them. Hear this instead. Most people are just NPCs, but you're a glitch in the matrix. Read The Evolution of the Anomaly, 73 pages of dark clarity, written by Animus Morphosis. Consider that your intermission. Grab it from the description or first comment of this video. Now, let's get back to the show. In a space they believed was totally fortified, people gathered. And your name came up. Not casually. Not the way names float through small talk like background noise. Your name entered that room carrying weight, carrying history, carrying the exact kind of tension that only shows up when people know, really know, they are picking at something they have absolutely no business picking at. Something they've been clutching for a long time, for far too long. Something that had been building pressure behind those walls for months, maybe years. Like steam behind a valve that was never rated for that kind of heat. You were not supposed to know about this gathering. They made very, very sure of that. They curated the guest list. They were careful about the language. Oh yes, the language they selected. Like choosing the right knife for the right cut. careful about the expression they'd wear the next time they bumped into you in the wild. And there is something very specific, something almost chemical, that happens in a room like that. When someone is being dissected by people who hold influence over how their name travels through the world. The air thickens. The confidence that carried everyone through the door starts feeling a little less structural, a little more performative. Because on some level, every single person sitting in that room knows they are constructing something that would not survive daylight. Would not survive daylight. Would absolutely combust the second real light touched it. And then something happened that was not on the agenda. Someone in that room couldn't contain it anymore. Not the superiority, not the self-righteousness, but the sheer tonnage of what they actually knew about you, my stunning little proof of concept. What had actually been done to you. Because here is what that conversation uncovered, and here is why it went the direction it did. The people in that room were talking about someone they had miscalculated. Profoundly, structurally, embarrassingly miscalculated. Their biggest miscalculation, the one that started pulling the whole scaffolding apart, was thinking you were just another variable they could solve for. Just another equation they could balance on their terms. They looked at you and saw something compact enough to squeeze inside their preferred version of events. They had no clue. They had absolutely no clue what kind of element they were actually handling. And somewhere in the guts of that conversation, the reality started fracturing through their neat little surface. The way it always does when people marinate long enough in the same room with truth. It gets loud, even when nobody is raising their voice, even when every mouth in the room is technically shut. One person started retreating, started getting quiet in a way that was fundamentally different from the polite beginning of meeting quiet. You know that particular silence, the one where someone isn't strategizing anymore, they're processing, where something is detonating inside them on a floor they didn't even know existed when they RSVP'd to this little gathering. And then something fractured. Not a theatrical collapse, not a scene, but that very specific kind of structural failure that happens when a person has been load-bearing something that was never theirs to carry. The kind you can hear in a voice before the words arrive, see in the micro-expressions, feel in the way the energy of an entire room recalibrates in about 3 seconds flat. Because what they were dissecting, and what they were dissecting was your future, your name, your access, opportunities that had been quietly rerouted away from you, like traffic around a construction zone that didn't need to exist. Decisions that were made about your life without your input, without your voice, without even the basic decency of pretending you had one. There was a specific thing, an opportunity, a recognition, something that had your fingerprints all over it before someone else's hands decided to wipe it clean. And the receipts for that were sitting in that room like forensic evidence, like something that would read very, very differently under fluorescent lights than it did in the dark. And the person who fractured, they knew it. They knew it somewhere past language, somewhere in the architecture of their own nervous system, and it showed. It showed like water through drywall. And here is where the bunker started imploding from the inside out. Because that fracture wasn't just emotional, it was structural. Structural. When one person in a sealed system stops being able to bear the load of the entire system, the whole system starts redistributing pressure to joints that were never engineered for it. And suddenly, every single person in that room is shouldering more than they signed up for when they walked through the door. The quiet started metastasizing. The eye contact started deteriorating. The confident language that opened the meeting started hedging, softening, decelerating. And underneath all of it, underneath the careful phrasing and the dissolving eye contact, the person whose hands had developed a slight, involuntary tremor was the thing they had collectively been engineering themselves not to look at directly. They knew what they had done to you was wrong. They had always known. Always. Now, here is what actually goes viral in a situation like this. You magnificent little chain reactions. And I don't mean viral in the algorithm sense. I mean viral in the real sense. The way truth propagates through a network of people who feel it vibrating in their chest before they can put a single word to it. What went viral wasn't the gossip. It wasn't the drama. It was the recognition. The recognition. Think about what happens when you aim a spotlight at a shadow puppet show. When actual illumination hits the warped silhouette they had been projecting of you, it doesn't just correct, it dissolves. And every single particle of that dissolved projection became its own little transmitter, its own tiny broadcast tower, beaming the truth of who you actually are to every corner of your circle, your community, places you haven't even set foot in yet. The people who tried to cast you as the infection ended up quarantining themselves. And now everyone can see the hazmat tape. Everyone can see it. People started connecting timelines. Conversations started happening that the original room had zero jurisdiction over. Details started surfacing in locations they were never, ever supposed to surface. And the people who thought the story was theirs to own started realizing, slowly, and then with absolutely devastating velocity, that it had already left their server. The snare they built so meticulously, the one engineered to catch you, to lock your name inside a narrative that served their quarterly review of your existence. It snapped. Just not at you. Every lie they told has become a data point. Every false word has become an exhibit. Exhibit. The hearing they never expected to face is now in session, and they are the ones sweating under the lights. You've probably felt something recalibrating lately. Not something you could screenshot, but something atmospheric. A strange kind of pressure that doesn't register like the old pressure. The heavy, suffocating, drowning in real-time kind that made you feel like you were running out of oxygen in a room full of open windows. This is a different frequency. This one almost feels like something is about to give way. Like the stillness before a controlled demolition. But not the kind that levels everything to rubble. The kind that takes down exactly the structures that should never have been built. The kind that clears the lot and leaves clean ground on the other side. That's not in your head. That's not anxiety performing a matinee. That's real. That is exactly what it feels like when something that was working against you underground starts losing its structural integrity. Because here is what a lot of people genuinely do not grasp about hidden systems. They require constant upkeep. They require every participant staying committed, staying coordinated, staying loyal to the version of events that keeps you contained in a specific box with a specific label. And the moment one person in that system starts to fracture, the whole operation starts costing more energy than anyone budgeted for. The commitment to the fiction becomes more draining than the original fiction ever was. And drained systems leak. They always leak. I think you understand that by now, my beautiful little inevitabilities. They always leak. Always. What leaked from that room is precisely this. You are not who they said you were. You are not the malfunction they manufactured. You are not the version of you that made their decisions about your existence feel defensible. And the people who were in that room, some of them, maybe most of them, if we're being honest, know that now in a way they cannot unknow. They walked in with a story that served them. They walked out carrying something that doesn't. There is a specific detail that matters here, and I want you to let it sit on your tongue for a second. At some point in that conversation, something with your name engraved on it, something documented, something tangible, something that carried the fingerprints of decisions that were made in your absence, surfaced, not as hearsay, as fact, an opportunity, an agreement, a door that had been quietly, deliberately, welded shut by hands that had absolutely no authority near the hinges. And the room that had convened with such gorgeous confidence had to sit inside the reality of what had actually been executed, not the euphemism that softened it, not the corporate language that dressed it up as procedural or neutral or just the way these things shake out. The actual thing, the actual impact on an actual life, your life. And that's when the fire they thought they were setting to scorch your bridges turned around and started licking their foundations. That fire is now illuminating the exact opportunity they tried to bury under concrete. They are watching that exhumation happen in real time, and there is not a single thing they can do to re-pour the foundation. Now, here's the part where I need your full, undivided, exquisitely focused attention, because this is where most people fumble the bag so spectacularly, it echoes. When something like this starts cracking open, when the truth that's been compressed starts expanding, the instinct, the very human, very understandable instinct, is to react, to chase it, to sprint toward every person connected to your story, demanding explanations, demanding confessions, demanding that somebody just say the thing out loud already. That instinct makes complete sense, but it will cost you the exact thing you are about to collect. Because what's unfolding right now doesn't need your panic. It needs your precision. It needs you sharp, grounded, and completely impossible to destabilize. Because here is what else happens when hidden systems start to fracture. Some of the people inside them start moving. They reach out. They materialize. They get suddenly warm, suddenly invested, suddenly fascinated by your life in a way they haven't performed in a very long time. And I am telling you right now, not all of that is what it looks like. Not all of it. Some of it is real. Some people genuinely feel the tonnage of what they participated in, and something authentic cracks open inside them. But some of it is choreography. Some of it is people who are less haunted by what they did than they are terrified of being identified for it. There is a massive, cavernous, absolutely critical difference between remorse and reputation management. And right now, you need to be able to read the difference at the threshold before you let anyone back through the door. Watch. Watch the behavior, not the monologue. Watch whether someone takes ownership or redirects the conversation like a magician palming a coin. Watch whether they are asking about your healing or about what you've heard. Watch whether they are showing up because they feel conviction, that slow, heavy, undeniable reckoning that rewires a person from the inside, or because they feel consequences approaching and they want to get to you before the timeline does. There is a frantic energy around certain people right now. You can feel it even when they are presenting composed, even when the mask is immaculate. They are realizing they can no longer art direct the narrative. They are not mourning what they did to you. They are mourning what it's about to invoice them. And that is a completely different species of tears. You will know. You already know how to know, my exquisite little lie detectors. You already know. You have been decoding rooms your entire life, often when the room was doing everything in its considerable power to make you distrust your own decryption. And here is the thing about what went viral from that conversation. The real, irreversible, cannot be recalled thing that escaped that room and is currently roaming free. It wasn't just data. It was recognition. It wasn't just information. It was recognition. People who were on the fence about you. People who had absorbed their curated version of your story, the version specifically engineered to diminish you. People who had been quietly, half-consciously holding that version against you, like a shield they didn't know they were carrying. Something shifted for them. The conversation that was supposed to close the case against you ended up building the case for you instead. Funny how that works. Your silence, your dignified, unshaken, completely intentional silence operated like a broadcast signal. You didn't argue. You didn't defend. You didn't chase a single person down for a single explanation. And because of that, the universe stepped in and handled your reputation in a way no defense attorney, no PR firm, no counterattack could ever have engineered. The truth is spreading, not because you campaigned for it, but because truth is a force of physics. And forces of physics don't need permission. Never. Don't need a single permission slip. Not one. People you haven't exchanged a word with in years are suddenly picking up a frequency about your character that they can't fully articulate, but absolutely cannot tune out. That is what forces of physics do. People who had been fed a version of you that was curated by people with a very specific agenda are starting to feel the distance between that version and the real thing. And that distance is becoming increasingly uninhabitable for the architects who designed it. Your name is being handled differently now in rooms you cannot see. Not by everyone, not flawlessly. But the balance has shifted. The certainty that specific people carried when they spoke about you, that total, airtight comfort with a version of you that fed their preferred plotline, that certainty has been rattled. And rattled certainty changes everything. Because it changes what people are willing to say on the record, what they are willing to co-sign, what they are willing to keep defending when the cost of defense keeps climbing. You're going to start registering signs of this, not all at once, not in some dramatic unveiling, but in the texture of ordinary moments. Someone will say something to you that carries more payload than the surface suggests. An opportunity will circle back that you were told had been permanently decommissioned. A person will show you a different face than the one they have been wearing on rotation. And sometimes in a way that tells you exactly who they are when the pressure exceeds their rating. A detail will land in your hands that you were never meant to possess. A document, a name, a sentence, a single piece of information that hits with more force than its size should allow. Pay attention to what shifts in the visible, because every visible shift is just the surface expression of something that already detonated in the hidden.